What's up, Tampa? It is July 31st. For those of you just joining us, welcome to Tampa Talk. I'm John.
And I'm Dahlia.
All right, what are we talking about?
Well, this week, Tampa City Council puts the brakes on a major land use change tied to the proposed Braves Stadium. Mayor Jane Castor says she's beyond frustrated, and Hillsborough County reports Florida's first locally acquired dengue case of the year. A Tampa man also faces serious injuries after police say he was driving more than 100 miles an hour before a deadly crash. And then finally, we'll take a ride back to Tampa's original streetcar system, and we've got some cool events happening this weekend as well. But for this week in the work, we were just kind of talking before we hopped on the mics here about kind of the struggle between meaning and efficiency and what we spend our time on, and also like sometimes when you try to build processes and expedite like your time, buy your time back, you lose meaning.
Yeah, I mean, there's a million ways. This is probably something many of you can relate to, but it's like from a conversation, it's like a meaningful, deep conversation might have a lot of, you spend time and you're present. Whereas like efficiency is like, just get to the point of bullet. This, what's the next agenda item? Like treating people as an agenda item, which can be problematic and something I can be very tempted toward doing. But even like, as we talked about the process of getting this show together and the things that we're doing, it's like, if we had more, we're news editors and we had time to like go, hey, we've pulled together and curated the absolute best of the stories that are most meaningful to the DNA of our work and our vision for a well-built city and the challenges and obstacles to a well-built city. Like this, as we dialogue over them, it would be a much deeper, more meaningful thing. And yet also with what bandwidth? With what bandwidth are we to do that? And so we want to bring you the most meaningful stories and things that we can, but also there are times where, it's like, does it feel like we're reading through here's the headlines. And that is meaningful at some subset, kind of keep your finger on the pulse, word on the street thing. And then at the same time, there are stories where we go, man, if we just like this overlaps with your work in the food system and there's major stuff going on locally and like you could probably have a million things to say around this one thing, this would be applied here. And I think a lot of times we're in the place of meaning and efficiency. And I don't know, at some level, I want to be a person that votes in action and in general, just to say, put your chips on meaningful engagement. Like try to figure out how to do what's meaningful, not what's efficient.
Mm-hmm. I also think it's a question to listeners, because as listeners, I think I struggle between not putting bias into this story, like into our stories and readings. But then also, the whole point we do this podcast is for it to be meaningful. And so it's like, it'd be interesting for listeners to tell us if they like the segments of this podcast that they like best. And is it meaningful when we go into our own experiences and our own not even ad-libbing, our own commentary on a story, or are listeners coming for the headlines, right? And I think that applies to like a lot of our work, even on the kinship free market side, right? The most efficient thing is not setting a dignified table. It's not setting... Oh,
it's a bag of groceries. Here you go. Next, throw it in your trunk. Drive by.
Yeah.
There's a lot of very efficient distributions of food.
Exactly. But what we found is more important is the meaningful side, because you're not trying to be just an efficient food bank. We're trying to be one that serves with dignity. And so in that line of work, it's very clear to us what's the right and what's the wrong. And I think, or it's not right and wrong, but what's our priority and what's not our priority. And with the bike shop, I think that's a little bit more clear too. The gray areas come with a lot of like, I think some of our food education and this podcast being one of them too. And like you said, I think something a lot of people can relate to is like, where do you find that balance? And I think the answer is asking those that you're serving, right? And in this case, I think we're serving.
Well, and she said we would love to hear from you guys, and that's actually true. We've been shouting out, like you can message us at Well-Built Cities on Instagram. We would invite your feedback on the ways that this show's been valuable, what's been most valuable, what you've enjoyed the most about it. Would you like to hear us riff on this week in the work ad nauseum, or to get to it? Or, have you gone to some of the events? If you are, we'd love to hear about them. We'd love to hear back from you guys. So we'd ask you maybe to do what is meaningful and not efficient right now as you're listening, is to take a minute and message us. Give us some feedback as we start thinking about like how we can engage in this in the most meaningful way, fulfilling way possible with the time frame that we actually do have available to get to it. We would definitely love y'all's feedback on that. Anything else you want to do on that?
No, I think that's this week in the work. But this week in Tampa history, we're going to take us back to August 4th, 1946.
It was the days Tampa's original electric streetcar system made its final run. And it's wild how important those streetcars were to everyday life here. At the height of the system's popularity in the 1920s, there were more than 53 miles of track that kind of went all over Tampa.
I would love to live in this Tampa.
I know.
It was carrying more than 24 million passengers a year.
At a nickel a ride, which tells you just how central the streetcars were to getting around the city. They became especially important during World War II when gasoline and tire rationing made it much harder for families and workers to rely on their own automobiles.
Yeah, so back then the streetcar wasn't nostalgic. It was how you got to work, and I would love to be how I got to work today.
Yeah, then on August 4th, 1946, at 2:15 in the morning, the last Tampa Electric Bernie streetcar rolled back into its car barn on Highland Avenue, and that building actually still exists.
It's Armature Works right now.
It is
isn't
Armature Works, yep. That's exactly right. The old car barn was incorporated into what we now know as Armature Works. And so if you've been there, you've actually been standing in a piece of Tampa's transportation history.
And funnily enough, in 1946, streetcars wouldn't return to Tampa for a long time.
Yeah, not until 2002 when the modern Tico line began operating. And really, the return of streetcars happened because of years of community interest, nostalgia, preservation efforts, and organizations like Tampa and Ybor City Street Railway Society. So from 1946 until 2002, Tampa went more than half a century without any rail streetcars.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. What happened on City Council this week?
City Council Spotlight. All right. So little changes in how we're going to handle the City Council Spotlight moving forward because we record Tampa Talk on Thursdays. It can be difficult and honestly sometimes just impossible to meaningfully cover the City Council meeting that either just happened or is actually happening while we're recording. And so starting this week, we're going to look back at the previous week's meeting instead.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, that'll give us a chance to actually tell you what happened instead of guessing what might happen or kind of leaving things with a cliffhanger.
Yeah, it has felt a little weird as we've been trying to do that. We maybe could cover the morning CRA, but looking back, I think it'll be a better way to go about this. So the big story from last week was the proposed Rays Stadium, which we brought up a million times here. The mixed-use development on the Hillsborough College. I'll never get used to that. The Hillsborough College.
Yeah, HCC being gone.
The HCC, the Hillsborough College property. City Council rejected a proposed future land use change by a 4-3 vote.
And that wasn't actually a vote to approve or reject the stadium itself.
Right. So it's an important distinction because this was a future land use change. The property is currently designated public, semi-public because roughly 121 acre site is state-owned land currently occupied by Hillsborough Community College or Hillsborough College. The proposal would have redesignated most of that land to Regional Mixed Use 100 or RM 100, which is the city's highest allowable density category. A smaller 6 acre section would have become urban mixed use 60.
And so ultimately those designations are what are being debated here, and the designations would allow a huge amount of development to come into that area.
Like a huge amount of development. At maximum build out, the proposed designation would allow up to 11,924 dwelling units, roughly 18.5 million square feet of residential and non-residential development. Now, that doesn't mean someone was proposing to build all of that tomorrow or anytime soon, but that is what the land use category would actually permit.
And because this is state-owned land, the vote was connected to the broader question of transferring that land for the Rays Stadium and mixed-use projects. And most importantly, there are still major unanswered questions about funding. But City Council's rejection prevented the land use change from moving forward at that stage, and that didn't make Mayor Jane Castor very happy.
No, it did not. We'll get to her reaction in just a minute, but the Rays leadership has already said they plan to meet directly with each city council member to discuss the proposal. And outside of that issue, the rest of the meeting was largely routine rezoning requests.
So getting into that, let's stay with the Rays for a minute. Mayor Jane Castor says she is, quote, beyond frustrated with City Council after the 4-3 vote.
The mayor argues some council members are trying to kill a potential Rays Stadium deal before negotiations are even finished. And again, the vote last week wasn't the final approval of the stadium, and it would have been just the proposed land use changes to Tallahassee for state review before coming back to City Council for another vote.
And City Council is frustrated because they feel like the Rays have primarily been negotiating with the mayor's office directly and not with City Council.
Yeah, and that matters because council will ultimately have to approve key pieces of any deal. Council members also sit as the board of the Community Redevelopment Agency, the CRA, and that board recently postponed a discussion involving potential stadium funding. Then there's the size of the public ask. According to the current proposal, the Rays are seeking about $976 million in public contributions.
So roughly $796 million from Hillsborough County and another $180 million from the city of Tampa. So this is not a small public investment. And I think what we're seeing right now is the tension between those two different instincts. So the mayor seems to be saying, let the negotiations continue before they shut the door. While council members are saying we need more information and a more direct role before we start changing land use policy, which is, I mean, this is definitely not the last time, nor will we ever.
We will never. I don't know that we will ever say this is the last time.
Another story that we have coming at you, Hillsborough County is also reporting Florida's first locally acquired case of dengue fever.
The Florida Department of Health
for 2026. Sorry.
Correct. Yes, for this year. This year. Yeah. The Florida Department of Health in Hillsborough County confirmed this case this week. And the phrase locally acquired is important. That means the person didn't contract dengue while traveling somewhere else. They were infected here in Florida, most likely through a bite of an infected mosquito.
Which is that very common?
So last year, Florida reported 62 locally acquired dengue cases. So far this year, this is the first locally acquired case, but Florida has also reported 43 travel-associated cases so far in 2026. Those are cases involving people who contracted dengue elsewhere and then returned to Florida.
And this is pretty normal during this time of the year. It's a good reminder that mosquito season in Florida is not something to take lightly, and during the rainy months really comes on in full force.
Yeah, they're pretty thick too, especially during these like rainy kind of summer months when there's like standing water everywhere, for sure. Okay, a 20-year-old Tampa man is facing felony charges after police say he was traveling more than 100 miles per hour moments before a deadly crash on Florida Avenue.
The crash happened just after 7 in the morning on July 2nd.
Investigators say that Luciano Ibarra?
Sure.
Ibarra? It's Italian, right?
I think it's Spanish. But
okay.
Yeah.
Ibarra.
Yeah.
Probably similar. Okay. Was driving a blue 2022 Tesla at more than 100 miles an hour when he collided with a 2024 Volkswagen. Police say the Volkswagen driver was turning left into a dealership from the southbound lane when the collision occurred. Officers attempted life-saving measures, but the driver actually died at the scene.
Wow, 100 miles an hour on Florida? Like, where do you can't even pick up that kind of speed in Florida?
Tesla can get that fast very fast.
Yeah, I guess that's it. Well, he was arrested Friday and charged with one felony count of vehicular homicide. He also faces a misdemeanor charge under Florida's newer law prohibiting driving at 100 miles per hour or more in a way that threatens the safety of people or property. Another reminder of how quickly excessive speeding turns into something irreversible. And finally, perhaps the most unbelievable story of the week. Well, actually, we talked about this last week. So
yeah, we left to slide in.
Which there's that meaningful versus efficiency.
Yeah, we were trying to get this deck together, baby. All right, well, why don't we just start? What's going on around town this weekend?
Yeah, so I'm going to give you a couple of local events first. Next Friday, we have Rude Awakening Farms Farm Fest, which happens every last Friday of the month from 5:30 till like 8:30. Till the party kind of ends.
Next Friday or tonight?
Next Friday.
It's next Friday.
Tomorrow.
Tonight. When this comes out, it's tonight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rude Awakening Farms.
Assuming it's not raining.
Yeah.
So there is threatening some rain.
But if you haven't checked that event out yet, it happens every last Friday of the month. So today is the last Friday of the month, and so it will be taking place 5:30 at Rude Awakening Farm on 110 East Hanlon Street, which is out here in like the Sulphur Springs, Seminole Heights kind of border. Also taking place on Thursday, September 10th is the Pioneer Medical grand opening at The Drop, our facility, and that's going to be, they've been working to move in. Anything else you want to say about that, John?
Well, no, they're having some interns, so that's going to be, that's actually the grand opening on September 10th, right? Yeah, so, this has been a long time coming. We've been working, longtime partners with Pioneer Medical Foundation. We're super excited to finally, they're building out the space right now. They've set the grand opening date. They're going to be doing a grand opening event. They're taking over a big chunk of the building to open a clinic there, and we're so excited. They're actually coming in at such a big level that we're just saying, look, they're co-founders with us in this space. They're going to be like co-founders of the Drop and the Community Resiliency Hub and the Community Resiliency Coalition that we're building out of that space. And we're super grateful for them coming in. So we would love to have you guys come out and join us for that ribbon cutting. I'm sure they're going to get a ton of good attention to come out for that. We'd love to have you guys join us.
And then tomorrow, Saturday, August 1st, we're partnering with Florida Blue for a back to school event taking place over at their community facing facility in kind of the West Tampa area, kind of by the Sprouts down there. But it's a Florida Blue back to school event. It's taking place from 10 to 1. It's a free event for people to come out and get some swag. Well-fed community will be out there serving meals. It's a good one to check out if you live on that side of town or if you're a Florida Blue member. And then otherwise, we've got some of our a new event coming to you this week is MetroCon, taking place at the Tampa Convention Center from 12 to 11, Friday through Sunday, July 31st through August 1st and August 2nd. So throughout the weekend, $5 to $60 per day.
Oops. Hey, so one of the things I want to throw out, because you're rattling off, and I think we need this is something we need to do a better job of, is talking about some of the things that we're doing, rather than some of the random things that we found that are going on around town. But actually today at the Drop, so if you're getting this early in the morning and you want to come by, especially if you're out on the streets or you know someone that's on the streets, Tampa Hillsborough Homeless Initiative, or THHI, they do an annual homeless outreach where they bring all of the different service providers and stakeholders together to do this big outreach, from wound care to different services to people getting their IDs and all these different things, like things that we do day in and day out. But all of the potential partners, they're doing it at the Drop today. So if you want to come out for that, we would love to have you there. We're super excited for this partnership. We're with everybody throughout the continuum of care. And then, one of the things that I don't think we mention enough, we'll often say, because it's Friday, we have the kinship going on at Harvest Hope Park, and we have the community garden folks down at the Ybor Street Community Garden. But also throughout the week, if you guys are needing access to groceries, the kinship is out 6 days a week, right? So on Mondays is the one I would say don't try to get into, because busting at the seams, there's a registration waiting list. It's very convenient because it's in the evenings, but I'm just not going to announce that really, other than it exists, but it's not for you necessarily. But the easy to access ones are every Tuesday at Uptown Sky.
You can view the full list of our events on our website, thewellfedcommunity.org.
Great.
But yeah, Tuesday through Saturday are all first come, first serve. So if you or somebody needs access to some food, they're all at varying times of the week. We try to cover a plethora of different options so that people who have different schedules can access those things. And that's why on Monday, so it's busy.
And they're around town. There's one down on Thursday near Gandy. They're up at Uptown area, University area. They're in different neighborhoods, different times. Hopefully one's accessible to you, but we wanted to make sure you guys knew about those things. Anything else we got?
No, I think that's it. If you want to comment, rate, and we really encourage you to both share Tampa Talk by going to tampatalk.xyz. You can get this digital newsletter by going to wordonthestreets.xyz. And then we ask that you kind of just, engage with us back and help us improve the show.
Please do. Please do. This is a lot of what we were talking about even before we hit record today. And we really do want to invite your input here. This is a community-based effort. It's a community-based show. And community is a big part of why we're trying to do this, is meaningful engagement with you guys as well, to help you keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on around your city, so you can be active citizens in our city as we work together to see a more well-built city, a city made whole. Anyway, that's what we got for you. Until next time, y'all be good.